I am a NIDA graduate from the acting course here, and I have with me today Susan Pryor and Roman Dello, also fellow graduates, and we're going to have a bit of a chat for the next half hour about the course, experiences, career, etc. Now, we will be joined, I think, by Iolanthe as well at some point. She's just been held up in a rehearsal, so life of a working actor, as it were, which is great. So she'll pop in at some point, hopefully in the middle of the way, and I'll introduce you to her as well. I guess we have a bit of a mixed bag with us today in that, Roman, you're 2019, you graduated. I'm a 1999 person, and Susan's forbid me from mentioning anything about graduating years, so we won't discuss that. But Susan, if I may just start with you, your career is a deeply enviable one, I have to say. You have worked constantly in... Oh, here she is. No, please interrupt. This is Iolanthe, everybody, who's with us. She's a 2022 grad and in the middle of rehearsing...
Sorry, I'm late. I was in rehearsals and I ran through here. Hello. Hi.
Susan, coming back to you, you've been working constantly in film, television, theatre, in all areas. Internationally, we were saying indie just before, and really carved out a niche for yourself. Roman, you're 5 years out now, I think, sort of thing, and you've launched off with some work in SDC, Bump, seasons 1, 2 and 3, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Yes. Use your voice, please. Training. Remember the training, everybody. And then, of course, NCIS Sydney, yes, as well. And then,
Yes.
yes. And you're our most recent grad here, and
Yes.
you just mentioned rehearsal. You've come from rehearsing Sistren, which is a play you have written
Yeah.
and are starring in for Griffin Theatre Company,
Yeah.
as well as having just shot some work in season 5 of Black Mirror for Netflix,
Yes.
and then Cruel Hands, the thriller feature as well. So an enviable list of credits there for everybody. Is it on? Excellent. Bit of music.
Woo.
It's a soundtrack to our lives, everybody.
Oh.
I might start with all of us here and ask each of you individually. Can you tell me what first drew you to acting?
Fear, this may be a bit of a cliched answer, but I really loved, when I was a kid, getting up in front of the fam and putting on stupid accents and doing silly stuff in front of the family, but I think I loved that sense of performing for people. And when I was in high school and then I saw that it was something I could do properly as a career, I was like, okay, I'll pursue that, because I really love it. And I really love being able to... I think the fun thing about acting is that you can step into a variety of different worlds and experiences and then step out of it. So I feel like you get to learn a lot about the human experience and life itself in the act of doing the job. So that's kind of what drew me to it.
For me, I think, so I grew up moving around a lot. I was born in Australia and then I moved to London. And I feel like I just watched so many different people and I was always like mimicking them and like imitating accents and being like, that's interesting, she sits like this, and that's interesting, this uncle talks like that. So I feel like I just realized I was parroting people's behavior a lot. And then when I was maybe like 7 or 8, I watched Jumping Jack Flash, which is like a Whoopi Goldberg movie. And I was like, this is crazy. Like, I want to do what Whoopi Goldberg is doing. And that's how I wanted to be like an actor. I was like, that? Can I do that? Yeah.
Okay. So I might use this for questions and I'll pass it. Oh, look at that. There we go. So, again, probably to all of you, is there a reason you specifically were drawn to NIDA? And Do you remember your audition and what that process was like without scaring everybody in the audience?
My friend knew more about these things than I did, and she was from a dancing family, and she sort of mentioned NIDA, and I went, "What's NIDA? That sounds really interesting." She said it's the best theatre school in Australia, but of course it's now the best film and theatre school in Australia. So I sort of occasionally went to auditions, and people would sort of point out other people and say, "Oh, that person went to NIDA," and I'm like, "Oh, what is this mystery? What is this mysterious NIDA?" And then I just thought, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to go for it because I don't want to be the person that goes, "I'm not sure." I wanted to explore. I wanted to explore as much as possible and be confident. Yeah.
I do remember my audition quite vividly. I'm not gonna lie, I'm sorry, I was so nervous. I was like sweating, and it was one of those. I had a really fun audition. I think the fun thing about NIDA auditions is that you get an opportunity to work with the panel. They'll always try and direct you and guide you to see if you're able to be directed, but also they give you an opportunity to test stuff out with the pieces that you've selected. So I remember also thinking, oh, this is fun, and if the school's anything like this, it'll be great. I guess what drew me to NIDA, NIDA was always like a big mythical land when I was at school, in terms of like, oh, NIDA. Everyone would whisper about it as though it had the reputation of being the best, and I think it is the best drama school in the country. And then what drew me to it, I think, was I got into NIDA and WAPA when I graduated from high school. I selected NIDA because I felt that being in Sydney, the opportunities for other industry people to come and see your work are greater than if you were in Perth. And so I chose to come here, and it's an amazing school. It really, really is. I learnt so much. Yeah.
I also remember my audition very vividly. I auditioned in Melbourne, and it was a few kind of days process. Like, we did the first one, and then there's a callback, and then there was a second callback on the year that I did it. And I remember on the very, very first audition I did, I don't know, I think I had this idea in my head that I had to be a certain type of actor to get into NIDA. And I think the things that make me me, I kind of was like, I'm just going to tuck that away because that's not like the type of actor that I think they're looking for. And I remember the panel was kind of getting me to come to the version of myself that's probably the most authentic. And after the first audition, my takeaway information and note was like, come back as yourself. So I was like, okay. And so I think it was like maybe a few days passed, and I came back for the next callback. And I just walked in. There were a few divas doing their little splits in their jazz pants, and I said, well, that's not me. And so I put my headphones on, and I listened to Skepta, and I was like, just be you. And so I feel like that's kind of something that I know it's an annoying piece of information, but it genuinely is what I feel like got me into NIDA, is the feeling of authentically showing up and being in my body and in my humor and with my perspective and my references. And if that's truthful to me, which it was, I felt like that's what they saw, and that's what kind of got me here. So yeah, by the actual like final audition, I was having fun. I was going ha 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 ha, which I never expected to be doing. So it's good.
Yeah, I completely agree with that thing of being yourself, and I think that the more authentic you are, well, and also prepared so that you can throw it away and sort of explore and flow on the with what you're given, and be alive in the moment instead of sort of being inside of your body, looking at yourself from the inside and going into crazy places. But I completely agree with that, and I think if you're genuine in this in this world and you work really hard, you can make magic anywhere. But NIDA is such an incredible place. I was just so buzzed to get in. It was like the greatest moment of my life.
Did you all get in the first time you auditioned? Just out of interest? Yes?
I did, yeah.
Yeah, I did.
No, No, I was really, really young, and they said, come back, do some yoga, go to the Sydney Film Festival, get out into the world and meet people and get some life experience. And when I came back the second time, I don't know, for some reason, it was like the golden door just opened the whole day. It was amazing.
I had your experience. I first auditioned when I was 19, and I remember doing a Romeo monologue. It was very serious and all of this, and and got through a number of rounds, and then they took me aside and sort of said exactly that. You need some more life experience. At the time, I was like devastated and thought, this is just unjust. What's going on? And then I went out and I actually worked in musicals professionally for a number of years, and then it was through that process I started to realise there's a lot I didn't know and wanted to learn. So I came back to the idea, and I came back and auditioned them when I was 25. And similarly, the Golden Door experience, in that it just felt like it was meant to be, and this was the right place for me. But again, bringing that authenticity you speak of and yourself in the door makes that difference. That is number one, and I think priority for anyone looking to audition is don't try and be something you're not. Bring yourself to that room and show them what you can do. Is there something from your training that you each use still today in your process that you can easily sort of point to? I know for me, it's how I mark up my script. Like, I learned something particularly in second year that really worked for my mental structure and how I approach things, and I continue to use that today. But I wonder if there's anything from each of you that you still hold on to.
Oh, look, I try to be really disciplined. I could probably give myself a bit of a break, but I do 2 hours of prep before I do a play every night, like just to be in the moment. So I guess what I got from NIDA was discipline, and besides the normal teachers that you also get people who work in the industry, and they come in and they're a breath of fresh air, and they know what it's like to be in the industry. So you're getting information from established teachers, but also people who live in the real world, and they give you little bits and bobs of advice that you just wouldn't get because you wouldn't be able to ask those questions.
I'd say the vocal warm-ups we did for 3 years, day in, day out, have stuck with me. I use them before, especially theatre work. I would say that the biggest thing I've taken from the training here, though, is a sense of confidence in that I think because we're exposed to so many different styles of writing and different scripts and different practitioners, I think when you then leave NIDA and start to work on actual projects, it's given me just a sense in myself that I can handle it. Do you know what I mean? Whereas before, without a training, you can be a bit like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. But coming to NIDA, it gives you a really great foundation across all kind of aspects of the job. And then I think going forward, you can kind of take that and go, yeah, I can do it. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with Roman. I think for me, it's like the voice training. I got into NIDA when I was 17. I was really young. And I think a lot of women experience, or like young girls particularly, experience a thing of heightening your voice and having like a higher octave voice. Kind of it's out of apologeticness or, I don't know, not coming into yourself. And I worked really hard in the voice department, specifically here, just to like find my actual voice. And I think now I'm obviously in rehearsal for theatre, but every time I come back to the like stage, I just run my vocal warm up. Like I feel like I just have to come back to that same set of tools, and that was given to me here, and it was really helpful. Like I feel like I found like my genuine voice, which was something I didn't even realize I didn't have. And I also agree with you, Roman, on the confidence thing. I think at NIDA you kind of get the opportunity to quote unquote fail. It's not actually failing, it's just like being a flawed person and messing up a line or not delivering that one thing very believably. But I think you kind of do it and do it and do it, and you get perceived so much that the fear of being watched and not doing the most perfect thing kind of disappears. And I think that leaves you with a kind of confidence in yourself and what you're able to do, which I still carry with me.
Yeah, and sorry, just one last thing. I think because of on that as well, because you're through second year and third year doing public performances, it kind of trains you, and then you've got your big showcase at the end of third year. Because you kind of get introduced to some stakes at the school when you then go out and do it in the real world professionally, it's kind of, you've been trained to learn how to cope with that. Do you know what I mean? You're not just going out there being like, I've never done that before. Yeah. You've got the grounding.
And to segue from that, it's also about community. It's about the different branches here. You know, you're moving around with people who are making sets, who are making costumes, who are sort of like the generation that's coming out. They become your friends, they become your community. And I will say that, you know, even Sarah Snook, who's just won the big award over in New York for Dorian Gray. I think she probably met Kip here, and that's how they got to know each other, and that's what being an actor and in this community is all about. It's about trust, it's about connection, and generosity.
I'll piggyback onto that. Sorry, I'm just going to shut up in a second. I've not yet been on a job where I've not encountered, I should phrase it like this, every job I've been on since leaving NIDA, I've encountered someone either on set or behind the scenes on stage that I went to NIDA with. So I think that's kind of the greatest aspect, well, one of the greatest aspects of this school is that you immediately, as Susan said, get an immediate network of other makers that you literally then go on to work with later on forever, which is...
And I think one of the strengths of this school is the respect it teaches you for everyone else's craft, and that whilst an actor may be the person in the spotlight or who the lens is focused on, they are not, or we are not, the focus of the entire production. You know, it takes a team to build something, and you know, the technical production staff and the designers and the costume people, you know, that they contribute so much, and getting to know them intimately here, and then carrying that respect and connection through to the community when you do get out there is absolutely wonderful. If I can touch on I guess diversity and agility in career. Australia is not the biggest country in the world, and so to carve out a career here and do it only in film or only in television or something like that can be difficult, not impossible, but very few have that luxury. But also, you know, I personally love flipping from one to the other, you know, the requirements are different. How important do you think it is to have that agility and to kind of actively foster that sort of inquisitiveness and exploration as you build a career, Susan?
Oh my God, I think I'm probably the best person to talk to about this, because I have thrown myself into every area of this career, because I'm interested in every area of storytelling. So, you know, you start in theatre, and then you slot a bit of film, short film, indie film in between that. You get confident with that, then you bungee jump into a film career, and then, I don't know, I just feel like this is a career for life. This is an artistic career. This is a learning for life. NIDA is the beginning of that learning. It's the most amazing beginning of an entire career, which hopefully you'll be refreshing every single thing you do. I've worked internationally, in Australia. I've had the luck of working with incredible people like Philip Seymour Hoffman, bless his soul, and Kate Blanchett in New York, and all of that kind of stuff. So I think that if you just keep alive, keep the flow, keep learning, you'll never stop. I haven't stopped working since I left NIDA, and that was 1,000 years ago. And that's where you're getting.
I want to ask as well just about, you know, this, it doesn't sound like you've had many periods of unemployment, which is wonderful, Susan, but an actor's life is not always constantly working, and it has highs and lows and ups and downs. How do you deal with those, you know, and those moments of insecurity across a career? Because they can be very challenging, and so I just throw that out to everyone.
I have had periods of non-work, and I think that also this career you need to be in choice. You can't just be taking every single thing. You need to have a choice. You need to find a way of carving this career. And if I was teaching in a class, I would say that half the work you do as an actor in some ways is to counteract anxiety from maybe not being chosen every single time. The anxiety of actually getting up in front of 1,000 people and doing something and being scared. That's why I do 2 hours preparation before anything I do, because I'm shit scared, even now. And acting is about preparation so that you can flow and let it all go in performance and connect with the audience and give 100% of yourself and almost fly. It's a very exciting career. It's very scary at times too, but there's so many aspects of this career. It's not just film, television, it's writing, it's collaborating, it's creating with other people, work from out of nowhere. And this is the last thing I'll say, sorry I'm blabbering on, but Tony Knight, who is the head of our acting course, he said, don't sit by the phone and wait for it to call. You guys have to get out and make your own work. And from that comes magic.
No. I will say, just in terms of the day-to-day, like how do you deal with the ups and downs, it is a very, very tricky industry to work in and a career to pursue. But I think you also need a really strong belief in yourself. Do you know what I mean? Like in terms of having we were always told here to remember that the career is like a marathon and not a sprint. And I think, if you are able to have just a strong sense of self-belief, because there are so many knockbacks and there is so much rejection, that's kind of what's got to keep you going as well. Do you know what I mean? And as Susan said, Lee, you've got to be able to you've got to be a real person, like with interests and hobbies beyond acting. I feel like the worst person you'll ever meet in the world is like an actor who just loves acting and only talks about acting. I'm like, shoot me in the face. I don't want to talk to you. And they make for really boring actors. I feel like the best actors are people that are interested in a wide variety of things
Life
in life.
experience.
Yeah. So be a person. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agree. For me, if I'm like, it's a dry spell, I'm going to book a flight. Like, that's the first thing that I do. I think because I want to go and, like, reintegrate myself in something that is unfamiliar. I want to be, like, curious about how other people are living, what's happening in the theatre scene in Thailand, what's going on in London right now. And I want to sit there and I want to engage with something until new ideas spark, or until I stand in a foyer and I meet this creative and then we come up with an idea and we work together. Like, I think that a lot of the work that I've done comes from genuine conversations and like miraculous meetings with people across the world. And I think that's the kind of work that I want to make and the kind of work that I like. When I engage with films, I often look at the actors on actors about it. And half of the time it's like, oh, I met this one person at this party in Paris and then they told me that they had this script and I read it and we came on board. And so like, I believe that that work is kind of the work that I'm interested in doing anyway. But I also, I guess I turned to writing when it got quiet for me. I was like, what do I want to say? What type of role do I want to play? What am I missing from Australian theatre scene? To be honest, I think there's a lot of gaps in the Australian theatre scene, particularly in like diverse stories. I don't see many stories that reflect myself at all. And so it's like, I can't wait for someone else to invent that. I should probably just make it and trust that I can do it and cast someone else who needs that role too. And so I think there's actually something quite powerful in that, because I'd love to play a small part in changing what the canon looks like for Australia, particularly if it's quite, I don't know, if it looks a certain way or it's quite, it's putting certain people to the front. I'm trying to be like, hey, what about her? Hey, what about her? So I think pick up a pen.
I think you've touched on something there, which is that concept of, what does success look like for us as actors? And, like Baz Luhrmann went through the acting course here. He's not acting, but he's having a big impact, And similarly, you've picked up the pen and started writing and doing. And whilst you may be here doing an acting course necessarily, it's this holistic environment that helps breed the confidence to be able to approach writing something and doing those sorts of things. We do have to sort of wrap up a little bit, so I just want to ask one final question here, which is for any budding auditionees out here, people considering coming here, what would you say is the best bit of advice you could give them?
We've already talked about being yourselves, and I really do think that's number one. But working really hard so that you can let it go and be yourself and channel even, and have the bravery to channel, which is really where you're coming from. That's what I would say. But also, every art fuses into every other art. All the things that you've lived in your life, whether it's being in music or sport or having a family, it all fuses into your art and into your theatrical life or your film life. That's why we're lucky as artists to live the life that we do. Not all of us speak in the same language. Some of us don't speak like accountants. Some of us don't fit very well into society. And when I arrived at NIDA, I felt that it was the first time that people were speaking my language. And I still feel like this community around the world and in Australia is a really warm, embracing, and genuinely kind group.
That was really beautiful, Susan. I'm going to give maybe just a more practical, a piece of advice that maybe is like useful for the actual audition day. Just make sure, I think we got to help out. I'm sure you did this as well with like, I don't know what I'm talking about. When you guys do auditions, they'll often use current students to help out as like warm bodies in the space. Something I noticed a lot when I was helping out in those auditions was actors that come in and you do your pieces you're only able to do them in one particular way, and the panel will really encourage you to change it. And what if you tried it like you were swimming around in a pile of fucking rubbish? You know what I mean? They'll ask you to do crazy stuff, but I think if you try and remain open to that and just make sure that those pieces are able to be worked, and you don't, flexible is exactly the right word. Yeah. I think try and take that in.
Yeah. I think my best piece of advice would be come in with a perspective. I think coming in with like knowing what you like and what you don't like artistically, having references that you have an affinity to, having a style of comedy that you're like, oh, that style of like physical gags, they really make me laugh and I know I'm good at that. If that's what your bag is, that's your bag. I feel like really honing the way in which you see the world and therefore how you see yourself positioned as an artist within it is probably my most helpful piece of advice. I think that's what made me flexible in many ways, was because I had a Rolodex of things that I knew I liked that were just like downloaded in my brain, so that when the panel's like, try it like you're swimming through rubbish, I go, oh yeah, I saw that kind of reference, that's funny, I'll do that. And I have something to draw on. Yeah, I think hone a perspective.
I can't believe you know what a Rolodex is. That's amazing.
I know what a Rolodex is. Big
Bit of
vocabulary,
research,
baby.
Yeah. Well, look, that is sadly all we have time for today. So we wish each and every one of you here today every success in what you choose to do. But you please help me thank Iolanthe, Romandello, Susan Pryor.